Hello, everybody, and welcome to our new episode of the Wise Mind Fireside Chats. And today, again, we have Julien Reiss, Erika Nadu, and Alec Wells. Very welcome. And I came across something the other day which I thought was really, really interesting. And Alec in the last episode spoke about how learning different languages can be really interesting because the way we actually talk in different languages, we use different grammar, different words, and we can actually learn and it can expand our mind. And that brought me to the point where I was fascinated to learn that in Ireland, in Irish, when you talk about emotions, you don't say, I am sad or I am happy or I am depressed. Because what we do in English, we identify with the emotion. This is the way I am. And if we go down the spiral of being sad long enough, we go down into depression. And then we completely identify with these emotions and say, I have depression. It becomes us. And in Irish, they actually don't say that. What they say is sadness is on me. So the way they express it in the Irish language is it's an emotion, it's on me right now in this moment. But you know what? In an hour's time, another emotion will be on me. So they don't identify with the emotion. They don't make the emotion an identifier. That's me, right? It's on them like clothes. I have a jumper on me or a pullover on me or a t-shirt on me or a dress, and then I change the clothes. It's the same thing. And I thought it was really, really interesting. And I was just wanted to throw that out and see if we would change our language around emotions, what would happen?
Far too much. From my perspective, we choose to believe that our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions are facts. And nobody, as you've said, is sad. You have to work quite hard to remain morose. Anybody that knew a goth back in the 80s will know how hard they had to work at remaining that miserable. And it is a choice. And I know this will be contentious to some people, but you cannot remain sad and depressed if you stop yourself looking down navel gazing and you go out into the wide world in the sunshine and you put your chest out and your head up and take a deep breath. You cannot remain depressed unless you choose to. And this idea of not identifying as a thing, I'm anxious. No, you're experiencing some anxiety. It's a completely different thing. And I think the world, certainly the part of it I live in, needs a damn good shake to remember this. We can experience sorrow. I think about my dog not being with me, and that brings sorrow and sadness. But I don't identify with that, and then I can think a positive thing, and I will get joy from it as well. Same creature, same relationship. So I'm all in favour of this Irishness making it into wider society.
I agree with you and say now I have Love Cat from The Cure in my head. Thank you. I don't know if you know this one. You probably remember The Cure, talking about emotions. But out of that also, for me, it's like a red flag or a green flag when I'm listening to people, when they're talking about themselves and how they feel. When they talk about emotion, are they saying, I'm sad? Or are they saying, I experienced sadness or I felt sadness at that moment? For me, it's a big difference when it comes to emotional maturity and being able to self-regulate yourself. So, because when you are your emotion, you're not at first you're not able to regulate yourself because you get triggered and now you are sadness yourself. You're the incarnation of sadness on earth, so you cannot change it. And then also a second really bad point that I really don't appreciate is that you're really manipulable. Anybody can do anything with you when they know your trigger point. Because if you identify as your emotion, if I want you to push you in a certain direction in your life, I just have to make you feel in a certain way to make you go that direction. So for me, it's also like being like weak and manipulable. when you.
I don't disagree. It's just the difference in the language that we use, right? Experiencing an emotion is much different than becoming the emotion yourself as personifying the emotion. Totally different thing. I'm wondering if we know it's a clinical thing and the medical model has done this and put this on people and make them take on these identifiers. So we're not going to go here with where this is going to go. But I'm wondering if there is some part of some people who use that as a leading, I am sad, in an attempt to be heard, right? Because maybe just by saying I'm experiencing sadness might not get anybody to pay attention to them when they're having this experience. So they resort to this. I'm sad and I can't do this. It's more of like a shout out. I feel like that people tend to do that instead of saying I'm having an experience of sadness and I just need somebody to fucking listen to me. Because how often do we stop and give people the time to do that, to actually just experience what they're experiencing so that they can experience it and then move on from it? So I'm wondering if it's sort of, I'm going to identify myself as so that maybe somebody can pay attention to me. I don't know.
And I think therein lies part of the problem. We would historically have had people around us, a community, a village, who would recognize that something was amiss and would have taken the time to say, what's happening with you? And they would have been heard and seen. But it's also only one step away from you have made me sad, cross. No, a thing happened which was completely neutral and you have decided to be sad or angry about it. I can't make you anything unless you are exactly that person that Julian was just describing, who, if you're not in control of your ability to regulate these things, you will permanently be a victim of anybody who wants to come along and manipulate you in that way. But you also wouldn't have that kind of relationship with someone in a society where people were seen and heard and valued for more than just turning up to a job or something similar, is being my thought.
I think there's loads in what you all said, and it's maybe down to how we live our lives nowadays in general, right? It's very easy to judge people and say, oh, they're staying in a victim mindset and whatever goes around, or they can't self-regulate, they're just playing on their emotions and they're running off to see some professionals and then they feel sorry for themselves. But if you think about it, when we look growing up and we look at what's going on, right? I remember as a child when I felt a certain way, people saying, what are you moaning about? You have it so good. Right? So nobody took my emotions serious, right? We have it so good in the West. What are you moaning about? Right? That's completely dismissing how a person feels in that moment while that jumper is on them, that piece of clothes of emotion is on them. It's almost like you're not allowed to wear that for an hour. You're not allowed to talk about this for the next hour. So maybe it is, as Erika said, a little bit a cry for help. When we talked about it before, when we talked about death and grief, right? If you're lucky, you're getting 3 days off, but only if it's your mother or father. You don't even get 3 days off for a cousin you may love dearly, or a friend who maybe was more important to you than your mother in some circumstances, right? So you're supposed to go to work and function. You're not even given the time to wear that emotion for a day, at least, not even for a day, right? And you're supposed to function like a robot. Maybe that's why we go into those spirals. Maybe that's why we go into places where we're saying, I can't anymore. If enough happens, and you're never allowed to actually wear the jumper for a day to then take it off and put the dress on, your happy dress afterwards, because they're actually suppressed a lot of the time.
We talked before about the only way to really feel an emotion is to feel it. And we know that what we resist persists. So if you get into this mindset of, oh, I've got to just knuckle down and go to work. I know Erika loves these myths around grief. I've got to be strong. I've got to, excuse me, listeners, fuck right off. I am going to actually sit and feel this emotion, whatever emotion it is, so that I can regulate it. Yes, there might be things really happening, time critical, emergency stuff, and you can't just stop and sob for 5 minutes. But you can always come back to it later and examine it and sit with it. And if it isn't one of these time critical emergency sort of situations, the best way you can possibly not have any ongoing issue with this emotion, whichever it is to sit with it. Pick up the jumper, hold it, smell it. What does it feel like? How does it make me react in my body? What does it taste like? I'm not saying you should go around licking jumpers. Definitely don't go around licking dresses. But examine it, experience it, live it fully, and then make that conscious and responsible decision that I can come back to that anytime I want. But now I've got to go and do this. And when I say got to, choose to.
As soon as Alex said the myths, I was experiencing frustration. I was getting really like at the way that our society has gotten here. So it's language, right? It's like everything is language, how we phrase something internally to ourselves and to the general public. But our society is so opposed to giving emotions the space. And we live in a really subpar awareness society, right? Where so people are more inclined to just say, I'm stressed and I'm pissed, as opposed to, excuse me, I'm experiencing frustration and I'm experiencing anger. Who's going to listen to that in our society? So I feel like the easier, quicker way to get recognized is to say, I'm fucking pissed, instead of give me a minute. I'm experiencing some resentment and anger right now that I need to just sit with. Do that at work. I'm picturing myself going into work saying, I'm experiencing frustration and annoyance at what's happening here. They're going to look at me like, but can you do that after you do this? Instead of, I'm pissed, get away from me. Nobody's going to come near me, right? If I say it that way. So I just don't think that there's the space. I don't think that we're used to hearing that kind of language as a whole. Most people wouldn't know how to even handle somebody if they saw them in the hallway and they said, I'm just experiencing some overwhelming sadness right now. Most people are going to be like, oh shit, I hope she finds somebody else to talk to, because I don't want to deal with that. I just think it's a quicker, easier way to identify yourself as it. People might either stay away from you or be more likely to want to help you if they think you're in crisis, because that's what it comes off as to me.
I think what you're talking about is compassion, when you feel what the other is experiencing and you want to help on top of it. And I think nowadays society lack of that. I heard the other day someone saying there is too much empathy in this world. A really famous one, I'm not going to name him, but a really famous guy say that. I was really surprised from him saying that, because I can, in one way I can agree. And I feel like maybe because this guy is smart and having a lot of empathy and is in a position where this can be a burden when you have to take a heavy decision when that life of others depend on it. So it's hard choice to make when you have empathy. But out of that, I think as individual, most of us lack empathy and compassion. We have sympathy. We can feel what the other one feels. Like, as you say, I can see she's sad, but I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to be empathic and I don't want to be compassionate. And I think we lack of that. And that's, yeah, a bit sad, but.
It also comes down again to our language, isn't it? Because the other almost pet hate I have when people talk about negative emotions and positive emotions. There is no negative and positive emotions. There's just emotions. They're all part of us. And I bring that up with my teenagers I work with, and they usually go, "But why are you saying that?" And I give them always the example, it's okay to be sad. And I said to them, look, both my parents are dead. It's a fact. What would you think about me if I would hop around here because I don't want to feel a negative emotion, and I hop around here now and say, "Yay, yahoo, I'm so happy." Ah! And I said, well, you would come across like a sociopath, like a really cold person. I said, exactly. It's okay. There's maybe emotions we prefer to feel and emotions we not prefer to feel, which is logical, right? But they're not negative. It's okay that I'm sad when I talk about my parents because I love them. What would it say about me if I wouldn't be sad, right? As a person. And I think this is the problem that people categorize and negative emotions. And you see it all the time. People saying, oh, I can't deal with this person. This person is toxic. What do they really say if they say people are toxic? I can't deal with them. I don't want to be bothered by them because half the people I know who talk about other people being toxic, they're not toxic people. They're just in a really bad place and they don't fulfill the expectations the other people have, what they should be like for them.
I'm thinking of a word.
This is so interesting.
Erika, let's practice our telepathy. I'm thinking of a word. What is the word I'm thinking of? Yes, boundaries.
So that's what I was just going to say. It feels like this could lead to a whole nother episode of what is the difference between toxic and holding space for someone, right? And being empathetic towards someone having a hard time. There's a big difference there, right? Just because somebody's experiencing an emotion that you're not comfortable with doesn't make them toxic. There's a big difference there. This is a whole nother episode that we it's like whole nother 4 episodes probably on this.
As well as the fact that if we come from a society that doesn't teach people as a fundamental social skill how to deal with our emotions, how to recognize them, how to realize that just because I'm sad at the moment, I'm experiencing this moment of sadness, doesn't mean that there aren't other things going on that ultimately will require attention. I'm not going to sit here, give up hope, and just cry into my boots. That's just crazy. You can't do that. And if we don't teach people that here's a place for you to have your emotion, share it with someone that you trust, someone who can help you co-regulate, someone who look into your eyes and hear you and understand you and recognize the pain that you are currently suffering, and then you can go for a coffee and a laugh or dissolve in stitches about something else completely. And we don't do any of this. We don't have the communities that help us recognize that thoughts, feelings, emotions aren't facts. They're something that we experience, and everything we experience, we view through a lens. We label it, we judge it. It's good, it's bad. It's just a thing.
I think that there's some education to be had about we just said the difference between what toxicity is in somebody putting their shit on you and then struggling with their own shit and you holding space for them. Education there, just like this whole there's too much empathy in the world thing. Education there's a big difference between having empathy and showing up for someone and coddling, right? I think that there's a blurred line there. So I feel like some people might call it too much empathy, but it's not empathy. We're leaning too much on coddling and not empowering people to be able to deal with their own stuff. So I feel like there's just a basic education that has to be had in teaching the difference between all of this stuff and what you as an individual are in charge of with all of it. What's okay and what's not okay for you. Which leads us to that B word, boundaries, that we were talking about just a minute ago.
But I just want to come back on what you said earlier, as some people use their emotional state to make others behave in a different way with them to get more attention and stuff like that. And I think it's also important to know that people, not everybody, but some people are weaponizing emotion to make you to get something or to make you go somewhere, for their own purpose, not for your own good. So yep, that's important to be aware of, because personally, and I know many people like that, we all tend to think that others have good wills, presupposition, but not many times it's not the case. Many times our peoples are they're in a bad place in their mind, and they just feel better if they can put their shoes on your head, and that's it. And that's the way it is.
That's the toxicity. That's the difference, right? But we have to be educated in being able to know what it is when it's before us.
I'd like to ask Gabby, as you brought this up and you have this recent experience working with the schools, is it's all right at some point in our journeys, as talking about earlier on, that we recognise that this is what emotions are and this is how we are aware and dealing with them. But I made quite a blanket statement about living in a society where we don't teach people, we don't help them to learn about their emotions. And you've obviously got first-hand experience of this with young people right now. So what are they learning? How are they being guided and mentored around this?
It's a good question. What I find is the way adults talk about teenagers, forget about it. They're very clued in. They're very clever. And what I find is they learn from the adults, right? So if you think about it, in schools nowadays, we all go to things in trouble. But what do they learn? They don't learn if anything is up. Look, talk to a trusted person, maybe the teacher, maybe your parents, talk to a trusted person. Now, what are they told? Oh, you're feeling this. Oh, what? Oh, that's anxiety. Go to the school counselor, right? If you think about it, it's the adult world. When people give out, oh, the youngsters today, and they want to be identified by 97 genders. It's not the teenagers who wrote up to 97 genders. It's some adults somewhere. I try to figure out who actually wrote all these genders. There's a list what they are. I actually went out of my way to find out who created them. I couldn't find it. I don't think it's one particular person. I have the funny feeling that there's a psychology student writing the PhD and they come up with another 2 genders to have the paper. I don't know. I suspect that. I don't know. If somebody out there, the listeners, if somebody out there knows who created 97 genders and who's adding to the list all the time, will you please tell me? Because I want to know. The one thing I know for a fact, it's no teenager at 15 who sat down and created that. It's the adults to bring it to them. So I did find that the teenagers are very clued in, and with all the workshops I did, gender never came up. None of them wanted to talk about that. They weren't interested.
And I think that's, listeners, can you spell the word ideologies? And that's all it is. People pushing their own ideologies and, oh, I would feel better if I could be a turquoise unicorn on a Thursday. Fuck off. You can't ever be a turquoise unicorn. It's not a gender. If you want a horn, you're a man. End of. And I hope that's been suitably confrontational to boost our ratings for the month.
I'm offended that you picked turquoise. Why is it not some other color? You're being very limited in your options there. That's bullshit.
I apologize to anybody who would rather be a cerise unicorn.
But it's again, Alec, and it's generalization. Maybe there's 1 or 2 people in the world who feel like that. So what? I don't care. But then it comes on social media and they blow it up and suddenly it's everyone. All teenagers want to be all cats, and it's not true. It's just simple not true. Statements, all teachers in school want to... No, it's not true either. It's not what I experienced. There's so much out there. And the interesting part, we spoke about generalization with the last class. And I told them what adults say about teenagers when I said I'm going to do workshops, and what they said about teenagers, and that I won't be able to work with them because they have a short attention span and they have this and that, and whatever they talk about teenagers. And they were sitting there like, they say what? Right? They're outraged. And then I said to them, now put the shoe on the other foot. I said, I'm sure you generalize. So tell me, all adults? Oh, we can't tell you. No, I said, come on, I was honest. You know what? The first thing, I think 5 of them blurted out in unison without knowing they were blurting it out in unison. Adults are all hypocrites. And I said, interesting. Why? And then I got the list. Well, they tell us don't be on your phone so much. Well, and our parents are on the phone all the time. And then they say, let's watch a movie together and have a night together. And then you watch the movie and suddenly you see this blue light in the background. You turn out and the parents are on Facebook, right? And I got all these stories. And I was like, well, it's a generalization at all. I'm sure not all adults are like this, but if so many in one class experience stuff like that they all agree that adults are hypocrites, we may need to point our little fingers more here and go, let's say, what are we doing as adults before we point the finger at the teenagers?
Well, they tell you to clean your room and their room's a mess. Oh, wait. Or is that just me? Did that just happen to me? Because that's a true story.
I'm just gonna jump on the opportunity about talking about gender, because another ideology that I heard a lot about gender is that there is only male and female. That's also ideology. That's not a fact. There is not only men and female in human species. There are people that are genetically in between. There are people that are trisomia chromosome on sexual gene. So there are XXY, not just XX or XY, there are XXY, there are 3 of them. Those people, to give you an idea, there are as much people like that as gender people in the world. So denying their existence is ideological also, because it's like denying gender people. There's only blonde and brown. That's it. That's not true also, I think. And that's what I'm feeling really twisted when hearing people talking about gender, because generally there is only 2 ideology. There is plenty of gender, or there is only 2. Well, the truth is in between, I think.
There's always 3 sides of a story, right? His, hers,
Yeah.
and the truth.
And is the important part about that actually we're just over-identifying with something? It's the same as over-identifying with being sad. If I over-identify with being male, that's where you get this story about toxic masculinity coming in. Perhaps we should consider less whatever label it is. I am male, I am female, I am ginger, and just focus more on how and who we are for ourselves and for other people, and forget about. I've never once in all my time in the emergency services felt the need to get into the cab, an ambulance or a police car, and tell somebody immediately what my sexual preference is. But there is a whole genre, let's say, because I don't know how to label it, it's definitely not gender, who will do that. And frankly, I don't care. You are here to do a specific role. I care about how you do that role and who you are for our patients or whoever. That's the only bit that should count as far as I'm concerned. How and who we are for ourselves and for others. And then if you want to be a turquoise or a cerise unicorn on your day off, I fully support your right to do and be that thing.
I think that's a really kind of nice mic drop, Alec, on the subject, because there's too many labels, there's too many boxes, there's too many assumptions, generalizations, accusations. Maybe we just have to learn as a species. And I almost said again, because I think we were better at it about 20 years ago, where we just try and understand each other. Let people be people, whatever they're into, let people be people, right? And just seek to understand, full stop.
Because at the end, what does it mean to be a woman or a man? It's just a cocktail of hormones. And nowadays, we know that if we change this cocktail of hormones, we start behaving in a different way. So we're just all the same, just with a sip of a little bit of difference here, and a little bit more testosterone here, a little bit more estrogen here. That's the only difference. But in the core, we are the same. And when you take young kids before puberty, they don't care about all those things. They're just beings. We're just playing. I like this guy, I'm playing with him. I like this girl, I'm playing with her. We're not looking for that.
I don't think I have anything else to add except for staking on Julian's metaphor of, because he's the master of metaphors, the cocktail of hormones makes us who we are in our behavior. So I was just going to add, and some of us have a twist of lemon and some of us have a twist of lime, and it is what it is, right? I think it's just more just showing up and holding space for people when they are visibly experiencing something can do wonders just to help us become more human.
I like that, Erika. Because what do we do when we deny somebody's experience or emotions or feelings? We literally tell them, I know better than you. I know you and your emotions better than you, right? Because that's what we do. So I have a trans friend who was a he, it's now a she. So if people say to him, no, you're born a male, I don't care how you feel, you have to feel like a man because that's my idea, that's my experience, because I'm a man and I cannot feel like a woman. I have never experienced it. So you must be wrong. You can't feel that either. That's literally what they're saying. It's denying another person's experience, and it's denying them that there is no truth beside my truth.
It's important, and I know we're going a little long on this, but in something like that, right? I could have my own belief system around that, which is it's irrelevant to that person, right? Because it's that person's experience. I can still hold my belief of whatever that is, but still show up for that person in a way that sounds like, geez, I don't know, must have been really difficult for you to experience whatever it is that you experience. That doesn't make me lose my belief system, and it also doesn't take away this person's experience. You can do both and still be true to yourself and just be a fucking human being, really.
This is such a good point. Maybe we'll end up splitting this one. But the way anybody experiences anything, like Erika's just said, is it's theirs. We can't deny them the way experiencing it. And not only can we not, but it lessens us to try and prevent somebody from... We've just said earlier on in the conversation that people need to be able to express however it is they're feeling and learn that that's a thing. It doesn't prevent all else. And when we get focused on gender and non-binary and all of these terms, it actually removes, we've had the conversation before about an external authority, and if we buy into any of these ideologies, suddenly it's right and wrongs, and it has to be this way. And like Erika's just said, I can hold an opinion about something that is completely contradictory to one that a friend of mine has. And we've seemed to got into this point in the world where that's this immature, well, we can't be friends then, we don't agree. No, I've just got a different opinion on that thing. There's God knows how many other things and how many other years of our friendship that means we're going to be like this in thick and thin. And you to leave ourselves in a position where we would negate a friendship or not seek to understand or listen to somebody just because we don't like. You think of what an ideology is. It's just a set of beliefs that we hold that help us to make sense of our own world. So to disagree with someone's ideology and then not be able to communicate or connect with them as a human, as a sentient being, is just the most ridiculous situation to have found ourselves in. And I apply that to anybody of any extreme polarity who cannot see or believe or hear anything from anybody else. It doesn't matter. It's the experience and your willingness to be a good human for that other person.
I think my takeaway from this whole thing is I don't need to understand or even agree with something that you've been through or have experienced to be able to acknowledge and witness what your experience was for you, because I wouldn't want that, and I don't like when people are not able to do it for me. So that's my takeaway. I don't know.
And I think that's a mic drop because it was a beautiful ending. So thank you very much for everybody listening. And as usual, all our details are in the comments. And if you got triggered with this conversation, contact us, right? Bye.